year, practically everyone is coming out with brand new, even longer, more complicated shows.
What if I told you that one of the funniest men alive built one of the most serious car collections on the planet? A collection so obsessive, so focused, and so jaw-droppingly valuable that it has left automotive experts, billionaires, and even seasoned collectors completely speechless. We are talking about a man who didn't just buy Porsches. He hunted them, preserved them, and loved them the way most people love their own children. Hi, my name is Johnny, and this is American Muscle. Who is Jerry Seinfeld, the car guy? Most people know Jerry Seinfeld as the comedian who spent 9 seasons complaining about soup, parking spaces, and the social contracts of everyday life. What most people do not know is that behind the laugh track and the puffy shirts, there is a man with one of the most extraordinary private car collections ever assembled by a single human being on this earth. Seinfeld's net worth sits at approximately $1 billion. Yes, $1 billion. And a significant chunk of that fortune has been poured, methodically and passionately, into acquiring some of the rarest and most historically significant automobiles ever built. We are not talking about a guy who bought a Ferrari because his accountant told him it was a good investment. We are talking about a man who genuinely, deeply, almost disturbingly loves cars. At its peak, Seinfeld's collection contained over 150 Porsches. 150. He reportedly had so many that he constructed a purpose-built, climate-controlled garage facility in New York just to house them all. A building that locals nicknamed the Porsche Palace. And honestly, that name is completely justified. When the collection was partially auctioned off through Gooding & Company in 2016, it fetched over $22 million in a single evening. A single evening. Jerry Seinfeld didn't just collect cars, he collected history. The Porsche problem. Why only Porsche? Now, before we get into the cars themselves, we need to address something. Because you might be sitting there asking Lizu, why Porsche? Why not Ferrari? Why not Lamborghini? Why not a nice balanced collection with a little bit of everything? And that is actually a fair question. Seinfeld has answered it himself in various interviews over the years, and his reasoning is surprisingly straightforward. He has described Porsche as the one manufacturer that has never lost its way. In his words, Porsche builds cars for drivers, not for show. There is no posturing, no excess, no unnecessary drama. Every single component exists for a reason. Every curve serves a function. And for a man whose entire comedic career was built around obsessing over small details that everyone else ignores, well, it makes complete sense that he would fall in love with a car manufacturer that operates on exactly the same philosophy. Interestingly, Rowan Atkinson, Mr. Bean himself, whose own extraordinary collection we have covered on this channel, once said the complete opposite. He famously stated that he could live without a Porsche quite comfortably. Jerry Seinfeld heard that and apparently decided to own enough Porsches for both of them. Good for Jerry. 1955, Porsche 550 Spider. We begin our countdown with a car that carries one of the most haunting and dramatic stories in all of automotive history. The 1955 Porsche 550 Spider. Now, you already know where this is going. The 550 Spider is forever linked to James Dean, the Hollywood legend who was killed on September 30th, 1955, when his own 550 Spider collided with another vehicle on a California highway. He had owned the car for less than a week. He called it Little Bastard. And just like that, overnight, the 550 Spider became one of the most mythologized automobiles in human history. Seinfeld's example is not the James Dean car. Let's be clear about that. But it is an authentic matching numbers, period correct, 1955 550 Spider. And that alone makes it almost incomprehensibly rare. Porsche built only 90 examples of the 550 Spider in total, 90, in the entire world. The car weighed just 1,210 pounds and was powered by a 1.5-liter air-cooled flat-4 engine, producing around 110 horsepower. Those numbers might not sound dramatic by modern standards, but in 1955, this machine was an absolute weapon on a racing circuit. Comparable examples have sold at auction for well over $5 million. This is not a car you park outside a restaurant. 1973 Porsche 911 Carrera RS 2.7. If you know anything about air-cooled Porsches, and frankly, if you don't, you are about to get an education, then you already know that the 1973 911 Carrera RS 2.7 is considered by many to be the single greatest road car Porsche ever produced. Ever. Full stop. No arguments accepted. Seinfeld owns one. Of course he does. Porsche built just 1,580 examples of the RS 2.7 for homologation purposes, meaning they built it to qualify the car for racing. The result was a stripped-out, lightweight, absolutely savage road car with a 2.7-liter flat-six engine producing 210 horsepower, a ducktail rear spoiler that became one of the most iconic design elements in sports car history, and a driving experience that owners consistently describe as nothing short of religious. The RS 2.7 has become one of the most aggressively appreciating classic cars on the planet. In the 1990s, you could buy one for around $30,000. Today, pristine examples regularly sell for over $1 million, with the most desirable lightweight variants fetching closer to $2 million. Seinfeld reportedly acquired his example decades ago, which means his cost basis on this car is, let's just say, very, very favorable. The man has good taste and good timing. That is a dangerous combination. 1970, Porsche 911S. The 1970s were a golden era for the 911, and no example from that decade captures the magic of early Stuttgart engineering quite like the 1979 11S. Seinfeld's example is finished in a stunning Gulf orange, a color that looks absolutely outrageous in photographs, and even more outrageous in person. The 911S of this era was powered by a 2.2-liter flat-six engine producing 180 horsepower, which gave it a 0 to 60 time of around 6.5 seconds. Again, not alarming by today's standards, but pair those numbers with a body that weighs barely 2,000 pounds, a manual gearbox with a gated shifter, and steering feedback so direct it borders on telepathic, and you begin to understand why drivers who experienced these cars in period never really got over them. Seinfeld has spoken about early 911s with genuine emotion, describing the act of driving one as something closer to a conversation than a commute. And when you factor in that well-preserved low-mileage examples of the 1979 11S now regularly command between $200,000 and $400,000 at auction, the conversation is also a rather financially rewarding one. Not bad for a car that most people initially dismissed as just a faster Volkswagen Beetle. I said what I said. 1990 Porsche 911 964 Carrera 4. Now we move into slightly more modern territory, and I use the word modern very loosely here because we are still talking about a car that is over 30 years old. The 1990 Porsche 911 964 Carrera 4. The 964 generation is the one that Porsche nearly got wrong. By the late 1980s, pressure was mounting on Porsche to modernize the 911, to add creature comforts, to smooth out the edges, to make it more accessible to a broader market. The 964 was the result of that pressure, and purists at the time were deeply suspicious of it. It had power steering, it had ABS, it had a proper heating system that actually worked, the horror. But here's the thing about the 964 Carrera 4 specifically. It was the first production 911 to feature all-wheel drive, and it was genuinely, remarkably, beautifully capable as a result. The 3.6-liter flat-six engine produced 250 horsepower, and the all-wheel drive system gave the car a balance and confidence that previous 911s had simply never offered. The market has now woken up to the 964 in a massive way. Cars that were selling for $40,000 or $50,000 just 10 years ago are now commanding upward of $150,000 for the best examples. Seinfeld, naturally, got in before everyone else did. The man is funny and financially terrifying. 1989, Porsche 911 Speedster. There is something almost theatrical about a Speedster. The dramatically raked windscreen, the twin-humped rear tonneau covers, the sense that this car was built purely for the joy of open-air driving with absolutely zero concessions to practicality. It is, in the best possible way, completely unnecessary, and that is exactly why it is wonderful. The 1989 911 Speedster was produced in a limited run of just 2,103 examples worldwide, making it one of the rarer road-going 911s of its era. It was based on the 932 Cabriolet platform, fitted with a 3.2-liter flat-six engine producing 217 horsepower, and wrapped in bodywork so visually dramatic that people would reportedly stop and stare wherever it was driven. Seinfeld's example is finished in white over a black interior, a combination that sounds almost too simple until you see it in person, at which point it looks absolutely correct and nothing else would do. Clean, purposeful, and stunning. Much like a well-delivered punchline, really. The 1989 Speedster now fetches between $150,000 and $250,000 at auction depending on provenance and condition. Seinfeld's example, with its documented ownership history, sits firmly at the top of that range. 1988 Porsche 959. We are now entering genuinely rare territory. The kind of rare that makes serious collectors go quiet. The 1988 Porsche 959 is not just a rare car. It is one of the most technologically significant automobiles ever built, full stop. When Porsche unveiled it in 1986, the automotive world simply did not have a frame of reference for what they were looking at. Twin turbocharged flat-six engine, all-wheel drive with a sophisticated electronically controlled torque split, 6-speed manual gearbox, hollow spoke magnesium wheels, Kevlar and aramid fiber body panels in 1988. Let that sink in for a moment. Porsche built just 292 road-legal examples of the 959. 292. The car produced 450 horsepower and could reach a top speed of 197 miles per hour, making it the fastest road car on the planet at the time of its release. It cost the equivalent of around $225,000 when new, which was an absolutely staggering sum in the late 1980s. Seinfeld's 959 is one of his most prized possessions. He has referenced it specifically in interviews as a car he considers almost beyond category. Current auction estimates for a well-documented 959 sit between $1.5 million and $2 million. This is the car that redefined what a road car could be, and Jerry Seinfeld has one sitting in his garage, just sitting there. Unbelievable. 1973 Porsche 917/30 Can-Am. All right, we need to pause here for a moment because what we are about to discuss is not really a road car. It is barely even a car in the conventional sense of the word. It is a racing machine so extreme, so outrageously overpowered, and so violently fast that even professional racing drivers treated it with profound respect and a healthy amount of fear. The 1973 Porsche 917/30 Can-Am is widely regarded as the most powerful racing car Porsche ever built. The turbocharged flat-12 engine in the Can-Am specification produced approximately 1,180 horsepower in 1973. With 1973 technology, the car was so dominant in the Can-Am racing series that it single-handedly destroyed the championship. Competitors simply gave up trying to match it, and the series itself collapsed shortly afterward. You know you have built something special when your car ruins an entire racing series. Seinfeld owns one. I genuinely do not know what else to say about that. The 917/30 is not a car you drive to the shops. It is not a car you take on a Sunday morning cruise. It is a relic of a period in motorsport history when manufacturers were essentially building weapons and calling them race cars. Current valuations for the 917/30 sit north of $20 million. This is not a car collection. This is a museum that happens to be owned by a comedian from New York. 1955 Porsche 356 Speedster. We take a step back in time now, all the way back to the very beginning of the Porsche story. The 1955 Porsche 356 Speedster. The 356 Speedster was the car that started everything. Ferdinand Porsche's son, Ferry designed and built the original 356 almost entirely by hand in a small Austrian workshop in 1948, using whatever Volkswagen parts he could find because Frankly, there was nothing else available in post-war Europe. What emerged from that workshop was a lightweight, beautifully proportioned sports car that carried within it the entire DNA of everything Porsche would ever build thereafter. The Speedster variant was introduced specifically for the American market at the request of Porsche's United States importer, Max Hoffman, who believed that American buyers wanted a stripped-down, lower-cost version of the 356. He was right. The Speedster cost just $2,995 when new, less than a well-equipped family saloon at the time. Porsche built approximately 1,600 Speedsters between 1954 and 1958. Today, an authentic numbers-matching 1955 356 Speedster in excellent condition will sell for between $300,000 and $500,000 at major auction houses. The finest examples, with documented racing history or celebrity provenance, have exceeded that figure considerably. Seinfeld's example is considered one of the finest privately owned 356 Speedsters in the world. It is the car that started the entire Porsche legend, and he has one. It almost feels poetic. 1970 Porsche 917K Le Mans. Before we get to number 1, we need to talk about perhaps the most historically significant racing Porsche ever built, the 1970 Porsche 917K. The 917 is the car that won Porsche's first overall victory at the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 1970. Let that land for a second. Porsche had been competing at Le Mans for years without a class win at the overall level. Then the 917 arrived, and everything changed. The car was powered by a 4.5-liter flat 12 engine, producing approximately 580 horsepower. Wrapped in a sleek short tail body, the K designation standing for Kurzheck, meaning short tail in German, that provided a better balance of downforce and straight-line speed than the earlier long-tail variants. The 917 also became immortalized in popular culture through Steve McQueen's 1971 film Le Mans, in which the car featured so prominently that an entire generation of car enthusiasts grew up associating the 917 with the absolute pinnacle of motorsport romance. Seinfeld's example is a documented, authenticated race car with genuine competition history. The 917 has become one of the most aggressively valued historic racing cars on the planet. Comparable examples have sold at auction for between $14 million and $28 million in recent years. This is a car that exists at the intersection of art, engineering, and history, and it lives in Jerry Seinfeld's garage in New York. 1994 Porsche 911 Carrera 4 wide body, the crown jewel. Now, you might be surprised by this, because number 1 in Jerry Seinfeld's collection is not the most expensive car on paper. It is not the 917, it is not the 959, it is not the 550 Spider, and yet Seinfeld himself has identified this car. The 1994 Porsche 911 Carrera 4 wide body as the single most meaningful and treasured car in his entire collection. And when you understand why, it makes complete sense. Seinfeld purchased this particular 911 brand new in 1994. He has owned it continuously for over 30 years. He has driven it himself, maintained it personally, and refused every offer, and there have been many offers, to sell it. In a collection worth tens of millions of dollars, filled with racing legends and engineering masterpieces, this is the car that means the most to him. Not because it is the rarest, not because it is the most powerful, but because of what it represents. The 1994 Carrera 4 wide body is the 964 generation at its absolute finest. The wide body option gave it a dramatically aggressive stance, the all-wheel drive system provided exceptional real-world capability, and the 3.6-liter flat-six engine delivered everything a driver could reasonably want from a road car. It is, in every sense, a driver's car. Not a museum piece, not an investment, not a status symbol. A car built to be driven by someone who genuinely loves driving. And that, ultimately, is the story of Jerry Seinfeld's entire collection. This is not a man who bought Porsches because his financial advisor told him they appreciated faster than real estate. This is not a man performing wealth for an audience. This is a man who discovered something he loved at a young age, pursued it with the same obsessive dedication he brought to his comedy career, and built over the course of decades one of the most remarkable private automotive collections the world has ever seen. The total estimated value of Seinfeld's Porsche collection at its peak has been placed at somewhere between $70 and $100 million. He has donated cars to museums, auctioned others for charity, and kept the ones that matter most safely stored in his climate-controlled facility, the 1994 Carrera 4 wide body. His car, his connection, his 30-year relationship with a machine he simply cannot let go of, sits right at the center of all of it. In a world full of collectors who buy cars for profit, for prestige, and for the Instagram photograph, Jerry Seinfeld buys them for love. And honestly, that might be the most human thing about him. That is the incredible story of Jerry Seinfeld's Porsche collection. A collection built not over one lucky windfall, but over an entire lifetime of pure, unapologetic obsession. A billion-dollar man who could own literally anything on four wheels, and he chose Porsches every single time. You have to respect that kind of commitment. Honestly, it puts the rest of us to shame.